Hello everybody, and welcome back to Tiny Tiger Collective. I'm Helena, and today I'm going to share with you the struggles that I've had with my 2025 planner lineup. If you've watched my Techikaigi video at the start of the year, you might remember that I entered into 2025 with a spirit of experimentation. In 2024, I tried using a catch-all system where I used this one hobonichi cousin to capture all the various domains of my life, from work, family, health, and hobbies. I thought that it would allow me to be able to combine all of my demands and responsibilities in the one convenient place. Unfortunately, it ended up feeling disorganized, like everything was jumbled together in a big chaotic pile. In 2025, I deliberately swung the experimental pendulum to the other end and purchased individual planners for the major areas of my life. This was my first year trying out hobonichi weeks after admiring them on PlannerTube for many, many years. And I got a week's planner for my work. I got one for my health and wellness. And I also purchased this Hobonichi A6 techo in order to keep up with daily memory keeping and journaling about my son. This Hobonichi cousin was an April start that I picked up last year, meaning that it still extends through until the end of March. So I'm also holding on for this first season in order to capture all of my long form journaling, personal thoughts, reflections, and venting. So that's a lot of journals to be keeping up with, and in short, it's not going well. Before I explain why, I want to share a moment of honesty and confess that I was feeling really anxious about making this video. My stationery channel is relatively new, so this one that I'm recording now is only my 7th video, and it's gotten me down a little bit this past couple of weeks because I felt like an imposter for having a channel about journals and planners, yet I'm struggling so much to keep up with mine. And the function of having these planners is so that my life can feel more organized and easeful, and it's really been feeling anything but. I want to thank my friend Libby, with whom I had a heart-to-heart about my struggles and who encouraged me to be open with my struggles and offer a realistic look into the messiness of journaling while juggling my full-time work and full-time parenting. So let me go through my 3 biggest struggles and how I've had to adapt my practices. At the end, I'll reflect on what I've learned about myself and my planning needs and discuss what I think I'll be changing at the end of the year. The first challenge, which might be very obvious, is that this lineup is too many planners for me to keep up with. I always knew that there would be a teething period where I build a new daily routine for updating these 4 planners. But after a month, it still takes me around 2 full hours a day to keep up with all of these planners. And I'm not doing it very thoroughly. So for example, because I have a health planner where I'm tracking, say, my sleep, my moods, I no longer need to use the weekly spreads of my Hobonichi cousin, where I used to track some of that information. So I've let go of the monthlies, I've let go of the weeklies in this book. I'm only using the daily pages. And I'm not doing extensive decorating or collaging in any of my planners. So I'm really very much get to this desk and I'm down to business, pulling out my pen and updating all the most essential spreads. And even then, generously speaking, it takes me 2 hours to stay up to date And there are still a lot of days that I skip. Part of that is because I really realistically only have the weekdays where my son is at daycare, where I've got the time to give to these planners. On the weekends, especially now that he's an increasingly energetic toddler, I'm just really chasing him around, taking him to the zoo, taking him to the park, and giving our family that space to spend quality time with each other. So I don't tend to take 2 hours on the weekends to update these journals. So that's why I've been slipping behind. I've accepted that I just need to let go of some of these pages, especially because my cousin ends in March and it's currently the most laborious planner because of all the different spreads and the size. I've deprioritized long form journaling for the meantime. Some of that is also a little bit to do with my moods. So if I am going through emotionally tumultuous periods or periods where there's a lot of change, this book is particularly nourishing and healing. But I'm not going through that at the moment. And so that's why it's been easy for me to let this journal slip and instead prioritize my A6 Hobonichi Techo, which, as I said, I'm using as a daily journal for my 2.5-year-old son. This is by far my favorite planner in my current lineup. And it's really the only one out of this 4 that I intend to keep, to archive, and to treasure in the long term. So that's why for me, it's easy to say if I only had half an hour on a given day, I would be writing in this book as opposed to spending that precious time updating the others. Compartmentalizing the different aspects of my life, like personal long form, work, health and wellness, and family and baby, means that I'm losing track of all my appointments. So last week, I completely forgot about a dentist appointment until the clinic called me 15 minutes after my appointment was meant to begin, asking me if I was still coming in. I was mortified. Part of the reason is that it never occurred to me, and again, this is so obvious, that compartmentalizing my planners meant that my meetings and responsibilities are spread out across these 3 different books. So as I mentioned, this book, I used to keep everything together, and it was nice to have a big list of all of my tasks, meetings, and events. So that way I know, right, maybe that 9 a.m. I have a meeting with a colleague, 11 a.m. I take a lunch break, but during that time I need to pick up a parcel from the post office. 4 p.m. I'm going to round up by meeting up with a student to talk about their assessment task. And then 6 p.m., I need to go call my mum, for example. So that way I can see how my whole day is laid out. The difficulty of having the hobonichi cousin for me was that because of the daily spreads being page by page, I really had to remind myself to flip through each of the pages to check what was going on. And last year, when I was keeping the bulk of this book, what I found was that maybe, let's say I had an appointment on this Wednesday and it was currently Saturday. I've noted down what that appointment was, but as I'm flipping through this book, I'm journaling here, I'm updating, I'm ticking off my to-do list for the day, I'm doing the same. But then let's say I completely forget to flip over to the next page and check when my appointments were. And then the next morning, I'll start my day, look over and go, oh crap, I have your important work meeting in 10 minutes. And I've completely forgotten about it. And I've lost some time to prepare and get in the headspace. So that was happening to me a lot as well. And it was all part of the struggle of trying to stay organized when I had to flip page per page and live day by day. So I thought the solution to that was to keep all of these compartmentalized books. And one of the struggles that I had is that with this being my work planner and the place where I'm keeping all of my work meetings, work appointments, and work tasks, And then here I've got my personal appointments. So I've got things like dentist appointments, haircuts, doctor's appointments, for example. I don't have my whole day laid out in front of me. So if I was working in this book and I opened it up, let's say, and I could see, oh, okay, for that day, I have a work lunch meeting with my colleagues. Great. But then I need to remember to flip to the same page in this one and check, hang on, do I have a doctor's appointment right after that? So I need to make sure that I leave that work lunch on time so I've got enough time to make it to that other appointment. So it means that realistically, I kind of have to keep all of these planners open on my desk and make sure that I am working in them and reviewing them day by day. And because I've not had the time to work in every single one of these planners, and I've had to prioritize, let's say, today I've got 1 hour to journal only, so I'm going to work, say, 40 minutes in this book this morning and 20 minutes in this book, then it means that I've missed a chance to look through this book and double check what my work obligations and duties are for that week. So this was a lot to keep up with. So one of the things that makes me feel especially like an imposter as someone who has an entire YouTube channel all about their love of beautiful paper and fountain pens is that I have had to, in this season of my life, lean more heavily on my digital calendar and reminders. 2 weeks ago, I downloaded an app called Finch, which is a habits building app that is helping me stay on track of my tasks as well as my self-care. I heard about it, and it's this really sweet app where you hatch a little egg and you get a little bird and you care for the bird, and the bird grows as you engage in your daily habits or your weekly habits. You can set it up. There's a lot of flexibility on what you choose to remind yourself of. And it's been really nice, and it's been really working for me. I love habit tracking apps. There's something so satisfying about, whether it is marking off in my journals a big chain of all the tasks that I want to get into the habit of doing, or whether it is being able to play with a little digital bird on an app. It's something that's been helping me stay on track, and having a digital calendar means I get to see my whole week spread out at a glance and be able to better track when I've got appointments, meetings, and obligations. The third challenge that I've faced is that I'm demotivated by working in planners that I know I won't keep. So as I mentioned earlier, aside from this journal that I'm keeping about my son, where I document all of our most treasured memories and day by day mundane but beautiful intimate happenings, I had no intention of keeping these books. These ones are very, very functional focused. They're really just tracking things like my insomnia, they're tracking my exercise, and how I'm eating, how I'm feeling. This is tracking my work tasks, the emails I need to send, the forms I need to fill out and submit. So I always had the intention that at the end of this year, I would just recycle these 2 notebooks. And if either of them or both of them were working for me, then I could just buy another Hobonichi weeks at the end of the year. And then 2026, I'll apply my system again. This book, the Hobonichi A5 Cousin, I had every intention when I originally researched everything about how to keep Hobonichi Cousin and spent hundreds of hours watching YouTube videos of planner tubers sharing their spreads and sharing how they're using it and different layouts I could adapt to my needs. I had every intention of archiving this book. I think Helen of Coffee Monsters Co. has kept a Hobonichi Cousin for many, many years. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she archives every single one of them in her gorgeously neat handwriting and her beautiful stickers, that I just think, oh my goodness, to be able to have your whole life, the last decade of your life, be archived in this way is just so exciting. And so I had hoped that 2024 would be the first of many, many years to come in a Hobonichi Cousin. But I've mentioned before in my previous videos that it simply just didn't work out that way. I'm the kind of person who, when I journal about really difficult emotional periods where I'm venting and I'm just getting what I feel like is the emotional muck out of my heart and onto the page, to me, it's cathartic. And then I never want to hold on to that energy again. Like I want to be able to release that energy, having gotten it out on the page, and then to be able to recycle this book at the end makes me feel that true emotional release. So after a few months in this book, I made the decision that I wouldn't be archiving it. And so knowing that at the end of the year, I will be recycling these 3 books, it means that I've really lost the motivation for decorating, including little ephemera, and taking my time to play in these books. And I know that's not, necessarily healthy or rational, that, there is incredible meaning and fulfillment out of creating and playing in our books, even when we have every intention of throwing it away, like the concept of the mandala, for example, of creating beautiful designs in colored sand and then sweeping it away at the end. It shouldn't have to be kept or turned into an artifact for it to have use. I know that. And at the same time, let's say I went somewhere really, really fun with my family. We go to a theme park, and at the end of it, I kept the little wristband that my son wore when he was running around in the theme park. And seeing that wristband reminds me of the laughter and the joy that we had on the day. I have this one wristband. It's not like I'm going up to the theme park and saying, could I have 5 more wristbands? Just give me a whole stack for all of my journals, please. I'm taking that one, and the one that he wore that I cut off at the end of the day. I know that I've only got this one and I've got one place to put it. So of course I want to put it into the book that I know that I'm going to keep. And the other journals, if that makes sense, loses out on the little wristband. So in some ways, there is a lot of sense in having the one book that you keep, because that means then you can keep all the special ephemera, memories, photos, all in the one place, rather than feeling like, oh, I've got to buy more stickers, collect more ephemera, get 5 brochures every time I go to the museum or the art gallery, so that I could spread out the decorations across all of my journals. That just feels very wasteful, both in terms of the things I collect, but also my time. So I've accepted that the sole priority of my hobonichi weeks is that they be functional. I've not been decorating them or drawing in them of any kind beyond what is strictly necessary for me to stay on top of my work and my health respectively. If you're interested, I can go through a more thorough flip through of my first month of 2025 in these 2 hobonichi weeks, what I've learned about keeping hobonichi weeks, and what is and isn't working for me. Finally, I've been going through a shift in my life more broadly. So it's not necessarily the system's not working, but since the start of the year, I've been making these videos for YouTube. But in addition to that, I've also been working on planning and building a small sticker business. And I've poured most of my free time into drawing and design and building up and dreaming about what my initial product launch will include. So it's not that these planners per se are failing me, but it's a really clear reminder how the planner system needs to work within the unique needs and constraints of each season of our lives. So while 4 planners may have been possible otherwise, I have taken on these new ventures and created these new demands on my time and energy that I'm happy to spend, that I'm happy to prioritize. And because of that, having my time spread out across the 4 isn't working for me. I always knew that getting these 4 planners was going to be an experiment in seeing if compartmentalization is the answer to the chaos and the messiness of having a catch-all system for one book. And doing this has taught me a lot about myself and my planning needs. So there's not a lot of bitterness or regret, that these 4 books aren't working for me. I know it's very early on in 2025, but my heartstrings have been tugged in terms of thinking about what my 2026 system might be able to look like in order for me to cultivate more peace, more ease, more organization in my life. What I'm thinking for 2026 is that I might go back to an A5 hobonichi cousin where I catch all of my work, my health, my hobbies, personal long-form journaling, all in the one place. Then I might add on a toddler journal along with it where I can keep the most treasured memories about my son, about all the fun that we have together and the adventures that we take as a family. And that can be a place where I really go into the decoration, the collaging, the collection of memory keeping ephemera photographs. But then I kind of have a personal journal where I get to soothe the part of myself that isn't a mother, that isn't tied to my mothering identity, and having places here to organize the rest of my life. So this will be the catch-all for appointments, meetings, task lists, to-do lists, and I don't really keep any of that in here with the exception of marking major milestones, birthdays, anniversaries in the monthly section. So this isn't really a book I use for organization. It's more of a journal, and then I'll have a planner. This might be very premature for me to speculate, but learning from my lessons in 2024, when the emotional muck of venting difficult periods of my life in this journal meant that I was very hesitant to keep it, I think there might be 2 paths forward. Dare I say the healthiest path forward? Look, I think they're both healthy, but I'd say probably my wiser inner self would say, do not sacrifice the hard parts of your life in order to archive a version of your life that is purely the highlight reels. These planners are not social media, and thank goodness for that. I get to be my whole self, my complex, messy, full self in these books. And that means, yes, I am going to maybe spend a week petty ranting about some colleague I don't like or some dramas happening in my family life, and be able to have that space where I'm coming to speak to a dear, non-judgmental friend. If I censor myself in my own books, like what does that mean about my authenticity? An alternative is if I'm compassionate and soft with myself about my need to feel a sense of a joy, to spark that sense of contentment when going through these books and leaving the mark where it belongs, is that I can always take a plain notebook. I have one here. And am I not a planner or journal person? If you can't within 2 seconds be able to reach a blank notebook, there's 2 more where that came from. This is a Midori A5 notebook. This one is gridded, and this is the plastic cover. So I have this whole system ready, and I can just grab one of my many, many blank notebooks and use it as a place to vent. When I was much younger, I want to say I was maybe 12 or 13, one of my closest friends bought me a guided journal at that time that was called the Blue Days Journal. And I don't even know if the company still exists or if they're still printing those journals, but it was a journal that you were supposed to go into every time you were having a hard day. And you could journal about your sadness, you could journal about your anger, your resentment, your frustrations. And I kept that book for many, many years. And every time I had a hard day, I would go in there and I would let it out. And I never ended up filling out that book because sometimes I might only have a really challenging day and feel the need to write in that journal once every 6 months. And so that book helped me through my entire adolescence. And I love the idea of having a book where it's all about my hard days. And I could go in and feel like I'm speaking to a friend or a caring therapist, get it out there. And maybe when the book is filled up, I could either have it to flip back on and go, oh, wow, yeah, last year I was having that really difficult conflict with my friend. Oh, I'm so glad we talked that out. And now our friendship is stronger than ever. Sometimes that kind of growth and development that you can see when you flip through a book like that is worth its weight in gold. And maybe sometimes at the end of that book, I want to do a little bit of a emotionally resonant ritual of letting it go, of maybe even burning it safely, and just allowing myself to say, okay, I release those emotions, I release that pain. So those are the ideas that I'm tossing up with. And look, I do want to say that I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I have a good job, that I'm able to make enough money to indulge my habits and my hobbies. And I'm grateful for this incredible planner community that has developed not just around my channel, but around the entire planner tube sphere. I comment on a lot of creators' videos, and I often sometimes even get into conversations with other commenters who help me out and suggest systems that has worked for them. And it's allowed me to learn so much more about how to use my purchases intentionally and with the reverence and respect that these beautiful products deserve. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all of your generous, kind feedback that you share on all of my videos. I've told a few friends about my YouTube channel, and the first thing that all of them remark, right, before anything else, is how nice my comment sections are. That many of them find that they could go in and see really lovely people being open, vulnerable, and exquisitely kind to each other and themselves. And I feel so grateful for having you here and being connected with all of you. So I invite you, if you have the time, please go down to the comment section below and share with me what planners you began using in 2025, what worked, what didn't work for you. Are you a long-time planner and maybe this is your 10th, 20th year planning and you've worked out and refined the best system for you to find planner peace? Or are you someone who's new to planning, maybe working on paper planners for the first time or trying out a new system for the first time? Please share with me your experimentations. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a social scientist, right? So I love data and I love data analysis. I'm such a nerd for these sorts of things. So please share with me and each other about what's working. I reply to every single comment, I think. So yeah, I try to anyway. And please don't hesitate to let me know a little bit about what you're doing, what your experiences are, and what your hopes are for the remainder of the year in order to stay organized, to create ease and peace in your lives. Thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Take good care until then. Bye-bye.